Hello children, the topic for today is letter writing. As we know, there are two different kinds of letter writing. One is informal, one is formal. In this video, I'm going to tell you about informal letter writing. What exactly is being informal? That's being very personal. So to begin with, let me tell you, informal letter writing basically is used for having some personal conversation. And conversation with whom? You can only have your personal conversations with your family, your friends, or your relatives. So the next most important thing of informal letter writing is that this letter can be written to your friends, your family, or your relatives. And for what purpose? For your personal communications. So to move ahead with the letter writing of an informal kind, let me tell you a few more points about them. First, as we know, we are writing to somebody very personal to us, somebody very known to us. So those letters are going to have some informal and personal touch to it, some tone. Now, what do we mean by tone here? Is basically that the closeness, the words that are used are not going to be the official words, but they can have a personal touch while writing those letters. So they can have an informal and personal tone in that letter. We can have it. Further thing, there's another important thing, casual, but you have to use a very decent language. We cannot expect that, since it is a very personal kind of a letter that we are writing, communication that we are doing is very personal, so we can use some indecent language. Not at all. We are supposed to use absolutely decent language while writing the letters. Coming further, we can also have a little bit of emotional tone to it. When there is something very personal that you're sharing with somebody, you can have a very personal words shared, very personal feelings shared in that letter. Let's move ahead with the format of this letter now. So far, we've just picked up certain points why informal letters are written. Let me brief you with the format of the informal letter. Coming to the format of the letter, there are certain things which have to be followed very particularly. First and foremost, we have to see to it that a left hand margin is maintained. What you can do, you can keep a scale and of course not make a line, but your registers, your notebooks will always have a margin. If not, just assume that your left hand side has a margin and it has to be very straight. So whatever you begin has to begin from that one particular place. The first and foremost important thing is follow the left hand margin. To begin with, suppose I pick up an address and I write, let's say A.S. Paul Enclave. A.S. Paul Enclave. Further address says R.K. Puram, New Delhi. Now I have to put R.K. Puram just under that A. R.K. Puram, New Delhi. Right. We have to say one more thing, and that thing is that do not use more than 1/3 of your line for your address. You cannot extend your address to half the line there and then proceed further. Try keeping your address as short as possible, so not more than 1/3 of the line it should cross. Okay. Coming further, now whose address is this? This part is the sender's address. This is the sender's address. Leaving a line, we move further with our pattern of the date. Let's presume, let me give the date as 22nd October, 2020. Now here, when we put in the date, let me tell you there can be different ways of writing the date. The first, well, this is then after leaving a line, we after sender's address, we leave a line and we move towards the date. The date can be written in this pattern, 22nd October 2020, or you can also write 22 October, comma 2020, or you can also write October 22, comma 2020. But you will not be writing something like this. This is not going to be acceptable at all, right? So we have to follow this particular pattern, or you can follow either of these. The entire name of the month, no abbreviations for the month is supposed to be used. Complete word, complete month has to be written there. Leaving a line further, we move down to yet another beginning of the letter. That is, let's say, let me put up, let's say my friend is Jyoti and I write there, Dear Jyoti. These days, comma is not needed. Like your applications in your phones are being updated every day. Similarly, there are certain patterns of study materials, English grammar and other subjects, they're all being updated. So for the current updation, we do not use commas anywhere. We are going to skip the commas. We don't need it. Now, what is this part called? When you greet somebody, when you begin writing something, this part is called your salutation. Salutation. Salutation is basically something with when you start greeting somebody, when you start talking to somebody, you salutate that person, you greet that person, say a hello when then you begin. For a letter, we call this as salutation when we begin writing our letter. After the salutation, you can leave a line and then come to the content part. You can just again leave a line and then content part of the letter, the content, or you can also call it the body of the letter. This body of the letter depends on what the matter is. According to that, it should be minimum 3 paragraphs. You can extend that to at least 5 paragraphs if you feel like. If you have a lot of matter to write, you can always add on more paragraphs and increase the matter there. But a minimum of 3 paragraphs is compulsory for the letter. To write a proper exact one, you have to have at least 3 of those paragraphs there. Finally, in the end, after writing the entire body part of it, completing it in, let's say for class 7 level, we can keep it to 100 to 120 words. Let's say this is 100 to 120 words. Okay. Now with the ending part where we just end up by writing down our name, yours lovingly, without apostrophe. Children generally tend to make a mistake of writing apostrophe S there. Apostrophe S is absolutely not required. I hope that yours is visible. Yours lovingly. And then just your first name. My name is Ruchi, so I am going to just write my first name here. Now what is this called? This is finally called as the subscription part of it. We call it subscription. This is basically the way we are going to write the informal letter. Once again, let me brief you from the beginning till the end. I need to adjust my camera a little bit more for you to see the top part of it. Coming up to the address, we begin with the sender's address. We have to see to it that the letters which are there in the address, the beginning letters, have to be in capital, in block letter. So the first, whichever words we are writing in the letter are going to be, this E cannot be a small letter. It has to be a block letter. We have to be very, very careful with such things because they are very minute marks where you can miss them out. You can presume you can get half mark for this, half for this, half for this, half for this, and the rest for the body. So even a slightest of mistakes from on your end, you miss out your half marks. So even a half a mark is so very important for you. So let's not avoid that. Coming further with the address, there's one more thing I would like to tell you is not to write abbreviations. Now you'll say abbreviations are already there. Well, that's the name. That is acceptable. But if you want to write apartment, APT, not allowed. Floor, FL, not allowed. Number, NO. Number might be acceptable, but not always. And then you want to write road, RD, absolutely not allowed. So you have to be very careful to avoid any kind of abbreviations in your address. If you feel your personal address is too big and you cannot fit it, you can write in any kind of address. Nobody is going to go to your house to verify that, of course. But you have to see to it that the address in the letter is not more than 3 lines. It's not more than 3 lines. It should be completed within that time. And at the same time, it should not cross more than 1/3 of your line. So you have to keep it as squeezed in as much as possible. Leave a line, go to the date. Leave a line, go to the salutation. You greet somebody, so you can always greet with dear and then your friend's name. To make it more neater, leave a line and go to the content part of the body. Now, in the content part, what all is required? I'll just brief you again with that. Just be clear with the format once. Once you're through with the content, you can always come to the ending part where you will be mentioning about only your first name. Since it's a personal letter, the person knows you already very well. So you don't need the surname to be put in for the person you're writing to. So it's just going to be your first name. In case you put in your surname, half mark gone. Simple. So avoid doing that and get into just your first name. I presume the format is very, very clear to you all. Just a little more briefing you about the content of the letter. Basically, when I said you need 3 paragraphs, but you can extend that to maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs. But coming to a quick recap of the content of the letter. Now, content can have, as I said, 3 to 5 paragraphs. Content of a letter, let's say 3 to 5 paras. Okay, and basically the first para where we can talk about greeting and the reason for your writing. The first paragraph can have a little bit of greeting the person, and further it can also mention about the reason of writing the letter. Now, if you have to be very careful here, one thing is going to be very important is not to put a question in your first paragraph. Please try avoiding any kind of a question. Suppose you want to say, you want to ask the person how the person is. So you can just frame it in a different way. Instead of putting a question there, you can always say, I hope you're fine. So first paragraph has to be avoided with the question marks there. Coming down to the next one, the next paragraph where we can talk about the details about the reason of writing. Here we've just given a brief of why we are going to write the letter. Second paragraph, we can talk about the details of writing the letter. Here we've just given the reason why we are writing, and here we can talk about the details. Suppose I tell you that I just would like to share my vacation. I would like you to know how I spent it. And then coming down to the next paragraph, which is going to be in depth, in details, there it has to be put forward. So your detail of writing the next paragraph will have plenty of things to write in it. And finally, in the third paragraph, you can always talk about the conclusion. Now, talking about conclusion, simply giving your regards to the rest of the people in the house. They all are known to you, of course. If they are personal, they are known to you. If they are your friends, you know their parents, you know their sisters, brothers and sisters, you know the people around them. So you can always wish those people, convey your regards to the elders, give your love to the younger ones. That way you can add up to your conclusion. Another thing you can add up in the conclusion part is uh, you can talk about calling them over. It's nice to expect you sometime here over at my place, or it'll be fun when we spend time together, looking forward for spending time together, and finally expecting a quick reply from your end. That's going to be a very, very personal touch which is going to give you till the end of the letter. I presume the informal letter writing is going to be very, very easy and good scoring marks. It's going to give you good scores, and I'm very sure you've understood the format. You have to follow the format perfectly. Thank you, children.